Hello and welcome to Always Bored, Never Boring. I am something of a fan of Steamforged Games. I certainly haven't played every game that bears their name, but Dark Souls is in my top 10 games of all time. I enjoy God Tier, Monster Hunter and to a lesser extent Euthia. I think their Epic Encounters line of RPG kits are superb, and I recently had a chance to play the demo for their new edition of Bardsung, which is currently crowdfunding on GameFound. That being the case, I was very interested when Steamforged Games acquired the Iron Kingdoms IP from Privateer Press, and I was delighted to be sent an early review copy of their 2-player starter set for the Warmachine tabletop skirmish game. I have never played Warmachine. My only experience in the Iron Kingdoms comes from the Undercity dungeon crawler, but I have always been intrigued by this world of warjacks and warriors, and I was excited by the prospect of trying out the starter set and sharing my thoughts as someone almost entirely new to the setting. And I won't bury the lead. Sadly, approaching this starter set from the perspective of a new player, I am somewhat disappointed. There is a lot to like here for new and existing players, but for me, personally, it didn't function as what I would call a starter set. It ships in your standard tuck box, so you won't be using it for storage once your miniatures are assembled, and immediately I was struck by how minimalistic this seemed. We have this image of the 12 included miniatures, 6 red ones and 6 blue ones, but no indication of who or what they are. The back of the box doesn't make things much clearer. The blurb reads, "Step into a world forged of iron and tempered by war. Across the Iron Kingdoms, where powerful steam engines and arcane magics intertwine, the factions of Warmachine clash in a relentless struggle for dominance. With the world teetering on the brink of chaos, mighty warcasters and warlocks command brutal machines and savage creatures into battle, forging the fates of their unyielding nations in the fires of war. Stride into the Iron Kingdoms with this starter set. Inside you'll find 2 opposing armies depicted as detailed hips miniatures and terrain to fight across. Choose advanced Cygnar or militaristic Khador, give control of the other to a friend, and go head to head in cinematic battles for hours of entertainment. This box is an excellent way to get into Warmachine or expand your existing collection." So from this we still don't know anything about the included teams. As it happens, the red faction is Khador, basically Russia, a force specialising in strength, heavily armoured warjacks and resilient units. The blue faction is Cygnar, which is a very advanced faction specialising in precision firearms and advanced strategies. To be even more specific, and I only found this out by scouring through the free Warmachine app, the Khador team comprises units from the Winter Korps, and the Cygnar faction comprises units from the Storm Legion. Overall, I didn't feel this box was giving me much information to go on. It felt almost like there was a tacit expectation that I was already supposed to know this stuff. That this wasn't really a starter set for the system or the universe, but a starter set for Steamforged Games' new plastic miniatures, designed primarily for people who are already sold on the game. That feeling was only emphasised when considering what the box actually contains. As the back of the box makes clear, you are getting models for use with Warmachine. It doesn't even tell you how many, you have to count them on the box cover. In order to use those models to play a game, you will need to provide your own tape measure, 3 6-sided dice and some tokens. Plus, unit cards and the rules. None of that is included. Heck, you don't even get any build instructions for the miniatures. Okay, I am being a little facetious here. You do get build instructions and rules, just not physical copies. Stuffed in the box with your sprues of plastic miniatures is a single sheet of paper with some QR codes for build instructions, rules for getting started, and the pretty impressive and totally free Warmachine app. Unfortunately, at the time I received this starter set, and indeed while making this video, the QR codes weren't working. And yes, that does mean I assembled this whole set without any instructions to work from. More on that in a moment. I was able to download the app though, and that's a really useful tool. It contains everything, the full rules book and rules for every unit in the game. It's also updated regularly. You can build your forces, reference unit cards, track unit damage, instantly jump to specific rules for referencing them during a match, or play games online. If you like apps for your tabletop games, you're going to like this app. But I like books. I really would have liked starter rules and unit cards in the box. That's what I expect from a starter set, a little booklet with the core rules and a page of background info on the world and each of the factions, some tutorials or learning scenarios that gradually step players through the basics, a handful of necessary tokens, and some dice. To me, that's a starter set, something that makes it easy to get started. This is a box of really high quality hard plastic miniatures on sprues. And that was something I was particularly interested to see. Steamforged Games are well known for producing board games with excellent pre-assembled miniatures, and those miniatures have only got better over time. Bardsung, Monster Hunter and the Epic Encounters lines all showcase what the company can do in that regard, but now we are dealing with sprues. I'm not sure if this is Steamforged's first crack at hips, but it's the first that I can think of. So, how have they fared? You get 6 frames total, 3 small, 3 large. This first frame contains 4 walls and 2 water features. Simple but effective terrain. And I think this is a really neat inclusion, and this box's only real nod towards being a starter set for new players. Terrain is really important for tabletop games. I often call it the third player. It helps to define the battlefield, realise the world, create the narrative, impose restrictions, and promote interesting tactical decisions. Often a starter set won't include terrain, or you will get some ruins. I really don't need any more ruins, and I often feel their inclusion, while useful, lacks imagination. This frame of walls and water is a nice compromise. It's a little something to introduce the ideas of cover and difficult terrain without instantly overcomplicating the game for new players with concepts like elevation, vertical movement, and units entering or leaving buildings. However, the terrain is just a nice bonus. We're here for the 12 miniatures that form the 2 6-strong starter forces. These frames are wild. This first one contains the Cygnar Warcaster, Major Alistair Kane, and his Warjack Deuce. Don't worry, we will be looking at all of these assembled in a moment. For now, just marvel at the detail, and the many, many, many bits. These miniatures are beautifully detailed, and once assembled they are dynamic and packed with character. I like them a lot. But, considering they are monopose and very few of them have any optional accessories, they are cut up into a ridiculous number of pieces. The Warjack is 18, which is understandable, but the human-sized characters are in almost as many pieces. Alistair here is in 13 pieces, 15 if you count the variant weapon options. This is the second frame of Cygnar characters. There are 4 individual units here, and you can see how small some of the pieces are. Knee pads and shoulder pads are usually separate, and there is even one character whose head is in 3 pieces. As a result, you are often going to be handling fiddly little bits. I strongly recommend building this stuff in good lighting on a clear table and put them together with plastic cement, or you will glue your fingers together. All that said, the results are phenomenal. Because there are so many cuts, you get layers of detail on detail, and some lovely dynamic poses due to the increased range of motion. There is a real sense of depth to the sculpts, a realness in how fabric folds and laps around armour and weapons, and no matter which angle you look at a character, you will find something of interest. This frame contains 3 of the Khador units, including the Warcaster, who seems to have brought a knife and some axes to a gunfight. You can see just what I mean here about the number of pieces. But recall, I didn't have any build instructions to work from, and yet I was able to build all of these miniatures. The reason for that is twofold. 1, the miniatures are monopose. They only go together one way, and each part is expertly keyed so it will only fit where it's intended to go. For example, a character's left shoulder pad may attach to a hexagonal peg, while the right attaches to a diamond peg, and both of those pegs will be shaped so it's impossible to attach the pads upside down. Also, every one of those pegs fit perfectly. There was no filing or trimming necessary. The tolerances were incredibly fine. And 2, parts are numbered sequentially. Each part you remove from the frame will attach to what you have already assembled so far. And if you have options for the build, like alternative weapons, the options all have the same number, followed by a sub-number. So you will have part D15/1 and D15/2, for example. All told, that really helped with assembling the miniatures correctly. This 4th frame is one of the smaller ones. It has the last 2 human-sized Khador units. The Solo on this frame has 16 individual components. His rocket launcher alone comprises 4. I guess some people may lament there aren't more options on the frames, and the figures are all monopose, but I don't have a problem with that. I don't really enjoy assembling miniatures, I just want to get them built and on the table quickly, and I appreciate that these go together so well and the results are excellent. This final frame contains the Khador Warjack, the largest and most complicated piece in the starter set, 23 pieces in total. But again, it went together with no hiccups. I'm not saying it was easy to build all this stuff without the instructions, and I was constantly concerned I was going to get something wrong. But the fact it was possible to put together such detailed and numerous components without making any mistakes is a testament to the design of the sprues. Look here, for example. You can see how the 2 pieces that you might confuse have very distinct wells, making it impossible to build this model incorrectly. But enough of that, let's see them assembled for action. First we have our Cygnar team, the Storm Legion, who seem like a jolly bunch of swashbuckling pirates. This is Major Alistair Kane, armed with 2 Spellstorm pistols. Like most of the miniatures, he is on a 30mm base. There were variant pistols on the frame, the left-hand pistol smoking, the right-hand pistol firing. I'm not a big fan of effects on miniatures, so I went for the simpler non-firing versions. Lovely miniature though, with a great tactical rock. Next we have the Warjack, Juice. I really like this big chunk of plastic. He has a Spellstorm cannon and a crescent blade. The miniature has lots of interlocking plates and pistons, making it seem very believable, and standing on a 50mm base, it has some serious size to make it rather formidable. Our third miniature is the Solo Captain Bastian Falk. He does have a sword strapped to his back, but his primary weapon is the Magelock scattergun. His flowing coat, which comprises several individual pieces, is absolutely lovely. It has a great sense of motion that makes the whole piece feel very dynamic. Rounding out the Cygnar force is the Black 13th. This comprises Ryan, who has 2 Magelock pistols with gun blades, Watts with a Magelock rifle, and Glove with a dual Magelock and trench knife. Again, we have fantastic flowing coats and dynamic action poses that give the miniatures a real sense of life. I particularly like Ryan, even though she was the one with the fiddly 3-part head where the rim of her hat and ponytail had to be glued on separately. Moving on to the Winter Korps of the Khadors, we have our Warcaster Kapitan Zahara Vaikul. He is armed with Mechanica axes and a combat knife. Dude needs to get himself a gun. I have to say, this is probably my least favourite miniature. I don't like how the axes are arranged on his back, it's a bit too fussy for me. And I did consider leaving them off and filling in the holes on his back with green stuff just to simplify his silhouette. His Warjack is Razor, an absolutely awesome miniature. He looks so stoic and resilient, slowly advancing behind his gigantic Ripper shield as he fires his slug cannon and twin grenade launchers. This was the most complicated build, but it was worth it. The results speak for themselves. Next is our Solo, the only miniature that comes on a 40mm base. It's the Jackal Sergeant Goran Lazarenko. He is armed with the Jackbuster. He actually looks a little bit like Gambit, if Gambit traded in his cards for a missile launcher and grew a moustache. As you can see, the miniature is sculpted with the Jackbuster firing. It looks cool, but I would have liked the option to make the model with the missile housed and ready to fire instead. This miniature also had an optional trail of smoke you could attach to the shredded remains of the Jack Goran is standing on. I left it off for a slightly cleaner finish. Finally, we have the Hounds. What a badass unit this is, hunkering behind their battle shields, ready to soak up anything the enemy throws at them. Teterlia has the Death Whisper carbine, Fedinkia has a grenade launcher, and Skrabala has a dirty Great Assault cannon. I love their solid posing. You can feel them leaning into the weight of their weapons as they advance on the foe, enemy bullets ricocheting off their shields. But that is your lot. Overall, excellent miniatures and an interesting choice for a starter set. You get classic contrasting playstyles for asymmetric battles. Cygnar are range specialists, while Khador are going to be eager to close the distance. And this box is going to be a great way to jumpstart 2 forces. You could split the box with a friend, or just to expand your existing army, or have some quality steampunk futuristic miniatures to paint. There is a lot to like here, but I find it hard to consider this a starter set in the traditional sense. Maybe that's just me, maybe others won't mind. To be clear, this isn't a bad product, it's just not the product I was expecting. I don't see it as a starter set. I see it as a way to start or expand a Khador or Cygnar force with beautiful new plastic miniatures. But I think anyone totally new to the game is going to be slightly baffled, because this doesn't ease you into the system the way I think a starter set should, and it seems to be built around the assumption you are already familiar with the setting. And I wouldn't recommend people not to buy this starter set. If you want to try Warmachine, it's pretty much the best option, and it does give you 2 excellent squads of beautiful miniatures with terrain. Just be aware of what the product is and isn't doing. As for me, what's next? Well, I would like to learn to play Warmachine and give these awesome miniatures a whirl around the table. I've tried to read the rules in the app, but that's not doing it for me. However, if I can read the rules in another format and get some printable unit cards that I can have out on the table during a game, maybe Warmachine would start to feel a little less obtuse and a little more welcoming for me. And so I'm going to leave it there for now. Thank you so much for watching, and thank you so much to Steamforged Games for sending this starter set for review. The set is available for pre-order right now. I will include a link in the video description below. And as always, if you like this video, please consider pressing the like button. If you really like this video, please consider subscribing if you don't already do so, and hopefully I'll see you all again very soon. Bye bye everyone. Bye bye.